Chris Jericho hopes to destroy the legacy of Ring of Honor. It's time for the AEW Dynamite review. Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with my review of Dynamite for Wednesday, September 28th, 2022. Before I begin though, I want to give a quick message of support to the people of Florida who are currently dealing with Hurricane Ian pounding on that state as we speak. The footage that I've seen of the hurricane is no joke. Hope everyone is able to stay safe and stay healthy during this wild time happening in the Sunshine State. And with that out of the way, let's get on with the review. We begin with the Jericho Appreciation Society celebrating the Ocho. Of course, Chris Jericho won his 8th World Championship last week, beating Claudio Castagnoli for the ROH title on Dynamite. And everyone in the group is decked out in all purple in their matching suits, very stylish. And you got Luigi Primo, who we saw debut last week in a moment of glory. He's there making the pizzas. He made the pizzas for the JAS for this party. And now he's a heel, apparently, because he's saying in Philadelphia, I made him a New York style, and gets booed and everything. Daddy Magic saying, no pizza for anybody, and then Anna JAS kind of echoes that sentiment and lets out an evil laugh while she does it. Jericho on the mic calling himself the most honorable man in AEW and says he's the most viewed ROH world champion because before him nobody knew what the hell ROH was, which that hurts. That's some heat there. But he says that he puts over Bandito really well. That's his opponent for this evening in the main event. Says he's a great performer. You're going to see a great show when we have this match here. But a sports entertainer will beat a pro wrestler every time. Turns his attention to Daniel Garcia and wants to give him a gift. It's a purple bucket hat to match the suits they're all wearing, and Garcia has it for him. He looks kind of miserable. It kind of throws back to the early days of the JAS when he had the bucket hat, but he throws it down and he decks Luigi Primo in the face, so he gets a big double pop. Garcia's had enough of the fun and games, and he really wants to tell Jericho something, but Chris cuts him off and warns him to think about what he's about to say here. But then as Garcia's getting ready to make his piece or say his thing, Bryan Danielson makes his way to the ring, and he kind of offers, it sounds like he's offering Garcia a spot in the Blackpool Combat Club, but he says, you're a grown man, you can make your own decisions. Jericho is tired of Danielson trying to poach his guys and says that Garcia belongs to him and does what he says. Garcia stands up to him for that, and he basically challenges him to a match where he and Danielson would take on Jericho and Sammy Guevara. We don't get a response to that challenge just yet because Matt Menard gets in Danielson's face and he's very aggressive about that, but Danielson says, hey, I'm supposed to have a match up next with anyone I want, and it sounds like you want to fight me, so let's have this match. And before the match officially begins, we do hear a couple of seconds of Bryan Danielson's music playing apropos of nothing. So in case you needed a spoiler alert, this match, it was good, but it went way longer than I expected. It is not over in a matter of minutes. This thing is going through the whole commercial break and everything. Danielson's able to win in the end with the LeBell lock. One funny moment here in this match is that Parker on the outside hitting Danielson with a DDT. Claudio Castagnoli makes the save where he beats up Parker, picks him up like a child and carries him off as Angelo is just like, wait, no, like that was the funniest visual I saw all night. But going back to the stuff we saw at the opening segment with the party, I think the over-the-top celebration by a heel and his stable has been done before, and it's been done better, even by Jericho's previous groups. This one felt kind of flat to me, but I think it did a good job of just building that tension with Jericho and Daniel Garcia and where Danielson fits into all this. And we find out later on that tag team match that Garcia proposed is going to happen. It doesn't feel like he's officially stepped out away from the JAS yet, but that's just building more toward the tension. And so we'll see how that story plays on, and I'll talk more about that in the main event. But this opening segment, it was okay, but could have been better. We get a hype package for the Jon Moxley Juice Robinson match coming up, and then what's supposed to be scheduled as MJF's time to speak is interrupted by Wheeler Yuta of the Blackpool Combat Club. He makes his way to the ring and wants to beat up MJF, not for what happened to him specifically last week, but because MJF went over the line and put his hands on Tony Schiavone. Fight for Schiavone's honor, Yuta wants. And he kind of cuts MJF's promo for him, where he says something about charisma, something about local sports teams and this and that, but he doesn't care about that. Now let's get to the part where we fight. MJF comes out wearing a Mets jersey in Philly, calling Philadelphia the place you live if you can't afford New York, so that was a great zinger. He brings brings up he and Wheeler Yuta's past together in the independents. Well, I think it's great when they can bring that stuff up. And this is the generation of wrestlers now who have all kind of largely worked together and worked with each other at some point. So having that history, I think, is just a great wrinkle. MJF cuts the same promo that Wheeler had already cut for him. But by that point, Yuta has had enough and he wants to confront him, but then the Guns show up and cut him off. And MJF says no to a match tonight, but we'll get one next week in Washington, D.C. And then he has the Guns say his own catchphrase for him because Philly does not deserve to hear MJF say it. So that was the end of that bit. I think this was a really good showing for Yuta, a guy who's not really known for talking. And so if you're going to have him get more promo time, like, this is the way to do it. I think he was very good in his delivery. And I think it was just a good showing for him, just promo-wise. There's a hype package for Jay Lethal versus Darby Allin next week on the anniversary show. And this time, Lethal says he's fighting on his own. I want to go to a world title eliminator matchup as Jon Moxley takes on Juice Robinson of New Japan fame. And they bring up the history these two have with each other. The fact that, one of the two victories recently that Juice has on Moxley was for the IWGP US Championship. I thought this was a great match. These two had some great physicality in this thing, and I've always loved Juice Robinson's intensity. These two had some good chemistry. Again, Juice showing the aggression, biting Moxley, getting the blood on the face was a nice touch there. They do make it clear on commentary here, by the way. They've made it official that MJF has the ability to cash in his poker chip, similar to the Money in the Bank briefcase in WWE, for example. And we do get some shots of MJF up in the skybox with his chip. It's not quite as egregious as it was last week at the Grand Slam show, but it's still very much there. Anyway, this is, like I said, very good match, very intense. Moxley wins with some face stomps into the armbar. And after the bell, you've got a confrontation with Moxley and Hangman Page, who won the big Battle Royal on Rampage last week to earn a title shot. And so they get this face-to-face thing. MJF on the mic breaking the moment up and reminding them that after their match, when they beat each other up, he can cash his chip in and win the championship. And as he's cutting his promo, Wheeler Yuta is back, and he is snuck up behind MJF in the skybox, beats him up for a bit until security breaks it up. Again, if you want to build up Wheeler Yuta as a credible opponent for MJF, I think this episode was one of the shining moments of this episode, was how they built him up. They gave him a good solid promo, they gave him a beatdown segment later in the show on MJF to give him that extra bit of boost. So yeah, I think if they really wanted to put some intrigue in that match for next week, they did a good job. Hey, before we move on to the rest of the review, it's time for a quick word from our sponsor.
God, I feel miserable today. What happened? I thought I drank enough water last night. Oh, my brain, it feels like it's pulling something, trying to make everybody fight. You seem cheery enough.
Yeah, boy, fresh as a daisy, ready to take on the day. Want to know how I does it?
To be like this, specifically?
See, Quattro Fontaine the fourth takes Z-Biotics. It's the probiotic drink you take before you drink. Want to know how it works, beaches?
Yes, but not from you, okay? You are way too much right now, and no one's going to listen to all that copy from that voice. Take it away, voiceover guy.
Z-Biotics breaks down the alcohol byproduct responsible for rough mornings after drinking that hydrating alone can't always prevent. Take one bottle before you start drinking, and come tomorrow, you'll be ready to take on the day.
Hey, that's what I said!
Z-Biotics comes with a 100% money-back guarantee. Get 15% off your first order by clicking the link below and using the code WREGRET at checkout.
Wait a minute, I thought I retired you.
Nope, you were off by 1 month.
It's time to hear from Saraya, who made her big debut in AEW last week at Arthur Ashe. She says that she is here to create change in the women's division, that she is the revolution for women's wrestling. And she decides to bring out some of the ladies for AEW, bring all the babyface ladies, including Toni Storm, interim women's champion, and she wants to put them all over one by one. But then Dr. Britt Baker and her gaggle of baddies show up after her, and we get this kind of promo off between Britt and Saraya, where Britt talks about how she's been the one running the women's division. She's the face of the division, and she's put her blood, sweat, and tears into it. She says that she's once again a conspiracy victim because last week she got her nose broken again. And big old zinger from Britt here where she says, I've put my neck on the line for AEW, and unlike yours, Saraya, my neck is strong enough for it. Like, damn, that's a big dig. And Saraya's biggest comeback for Britt here is that your name rhymes with shit. Oh, damn, she got her. There's also a big Jamie Hayter chant during this moment here, and they try and play it off, but like, they're a pretty big chants. The fans definitely want to see Hayter break away from the pack at this point. But Britt puts over Serena Deeb. They bring her out for the title match we're supposed to get with her and Toni Storm, and then Saraya ups the ante by saying, oh, I talked with Tony Khan, and now we're going to have it be a lumberjack match. ... for the championship. Like, oh my God, by the end, this whole promo off thing went really off the rails and it was really hard to watch. But luckily, we got into the women's match. Up next, Storm versus Deeb. Saraya joining commentary on this one. The Lumberjills aren't really a factor in this thing because first of all, it's a weird setup because, you know, usually you see a lumberjack match where everyone's on all four sides of the ring. For whatever reason, it was just like the two sides, the faces, the heels, and nary shall they intersect. It was two open aprons. There was a moment near the end where Jamie Hayter tries to interfere and Willow Nightingale chases her out of the arena. But besides that, not a lot of use of the Lumberjills in this Lumberjill match. Ends up being a really good bout nevertheless. I think it's one of my favorites of Tony's as champion. She ends up beating Serena with a second rope pile driver, which looked incredible. As far as Saraya goes, we'll have to wait and see what she does, what change she really can bring, especially if the reports are true that she's not cleared to wrestle yet. So if all we have in the short term here are these promos, I think that's not, I'm not sure how much that's really going to help things. She can maybe facilitate segments and matches kind of like what she's doing here without officially being a role of authority. But yeah, we'll see what the long return is on that for sure. We're backstage with the Acclaimed, the new tag champs as of last week, and they talk about how next week it's apparently National Scissoring Day. And you know what? Just out of curiosity, I had to Google it myself and see if it was actually real. Turns out, you type it in and you get on the top result is the plugging for next week's Dynamite. But also, apparently National Scissoring Day could be the 13th of April or the 8th of March. So needless to say, there is a lot of controversy surrounding the official National Scissoring Day, and I hope that all these different factions can get together and just come to an agreement in time for next week's show. They also say there's an open contract for a tag title defense this Friday. Then Keith Lee comes in and calls out Billy Gunn for costing them the tag titles last week because he interfered and beat up Swerve. That's how they explained why Swerve wasn't on TV this week, when in reality it was due to the hurricane in Florida. But Keith Lee just kind of gives them the business and walks off. Then elsewhere we see Andrade trying to break up an argument between Private Party and the Butcher and the Blade. I kind of forgot that Andrade still had a posse, if I'm being honest. And so then he storms off and the Butcher and the Blade leave, and Jose, as the assistant, gets in Private Party's face and tells him to shape up or get out, basically. Then Matt Hardy walks into the shot and he kind of offers an olive branch to Mark Quinn and Isaiah and saying, next time if we do this, we're going to do it right. So he kind of, again, extending that peaceful gesture to his former proteges, his former hires. And yeah, we'll see if maybe we get a reunion with the Hardy Party. Ricky Starks is in action this week. He's taking on Eli Isom of ROH fame, and it's a pretty darn short match. Ricky ends up hitting the spear and the Rochambeau in about 30 seconds to end up winning this thing. And speaking of ROH, it's time for the main event. It's the Ring of Honor World Title match as Chris Jericho defends against the former champion Bandito. I think it's just great for Bandito to get this time to shine here. I think he's a great guy and a great performer, and so good to see him get his long-awaited rematch for the championship he never got to have until now. And this was a very good matchup. I think Jericho and Bandito really worked well together. Bandito going to the air a lot early on, I think kind of showing what he can do. I love at one point, I think it's during commercial break, where Excalibur puts over that Bandito won the Battle of Los Angeles for PWG, and Taz on commentary just goes, "Bola." Thanks, Taz. Bandito using his strength, he's doing the big press slam to Jericho, the very long-standing vertical suplex, and at one point in the match, he gets his nose busted, so you get the blood coming out from under his clean white mask here. Bandito at one point hitting that fall-away moonsault slam, which always terrifies me no matter who does it. He hits the X-knee and the 21 plex, his finish on Jericho, but Jericho is still able able to kick out. You've got Jericho coming back, twisting the mask on him and putting him in the lion tamer in order to win by submission. After the bell, Jericho on the mic with Bobby Cruise, the ring announcer, saying that his goal is to destroy and desecrate the legacy of Ring of Honor while champion. He's going to destroy every former champion, every commentator, and every Ring of Honor announcer. And Bobby Cruise is like, huh? And then he gets beat up by Jericho. He takes the Judas effect. And oh my God, poor Bobby, what happened to you, sir? That was pretty amazing to see at the end there. But Jericho posing at the end as we go off the air. Again, great showing for Bandito here. If it's a one-off, I hope for more great success for him in the future, whether it's AEW or anywhere basically. And Jericho as champion, we're getting more of an idea of what his vibe's going to be about. Jericho said in the promo that he's challenging Bryan Danielson to a match in a couple of weeks in his home country of Toronto. And it feels like to me this could be a great moment for Danielson to kind of regain the belt and restore honor. He and Daniel Garcia together as the new father and son, they can restore honor to ROH as they go on to whatever direction that brand is going. But that's kind of my theory is what's going to happen. My grade for this week's Dynamite is a C+. My big question with this episode was, can anyone really tell me what they remember big and substantial happening this week? We got good matches for sure, but I feel that that's kind of the expectation, it's the norm. You would expect at least a couple of good matches, good to great matches every week, no matter what show you're watching. It just felt like kind of a big come down from the Arthur Ashe show, and I get that, but it's felt like it was just kind of like a treading water show. And again, also need to point out the fact that there were some travel issues with some of the wrestlers, some lineup changes because of the hurricanes. You got to take that into account. But I mean, there still is a show where it's there was good matches and stuff, but not a lot of interesting things happening. Again, the biggest takeaway for me on this show, besides the main event, was how they pushed Wheeler Yuta in this, what I'm assuming is a micro program with MJF. But besides that, it was just kind of there for me. But what did you think of Dynamite this week, folks? Let me know in the comment section below. Of course, next week is the anniversary episode of Dynamite. Might be able to cram in a quick little countdown regarding AEW into next week's lineup. Just stay tuned for that. But until then, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.